Welcome back to Walk Through the Bible with me in a year, week 8. We are starting in Genesis chapters 28 through 31, and Jacob is on the run from his brother Esau. Because remember, last week he tricked his brother Esau, and his brother is out to kill him. So he's running to his mom's family to live with them, and on the way there, he falls asleep because it takes days to get there, and he has a dream, and there's like a ladder going from the earth to the sky, and angels are going up and down the ladder, and God is standing at the top, and he promises Jacob the same thing that he promised Abraham and Isaac, that the land of Canaan will be Jacob's, and that he will have lots of descendants, and that God will be with him wherever he goes. Jacob wakes up from the dream, and he names the place where he was at Bethel, which means house of God. Then Jacob arrives at Haran, which is his mom's family. And while he's there, he falls in love with his cousin Rachel. So remember, back then it was not illegal to be incest. Actually, people preferred that you married in the family to keep the family bloodline, the family inheritance, all the things. So he had to work. His uncle told him, you work 7 years and you can have Rachel. So he worked 7 years, hard labor to get to marry Rachel. And on the wedding night, the uncle traded, and he ended up giving Jacob Leah instead of Rachel. And so then, so he tricked him, which is crazy because Jacob had tricked his blind father for getting the blessing last week. And now an old man done tricked Jacob. So he ended up marrying Leah. And then the uncle was like, if you want Rachel, you have to work 7 more years. So Jacob had to work a total of 14 years to get Rachel, whom he really loved. So now he has 2 wives. He has Leah and Rachel. Leah has a lot of kids. Rachel can't have any kids. So she's like, here's my maid. Why don't you have a baby with her so, we can have a baby. And that's just the same thing that Abraham and Sarah did, that Sarah did to Abraham. So it's like repeating itself. And then finally, Rachel ends up having a baby named Joseph. Eventually, God tells Jacob to go home to Canaan. So he takes his wives and all of his kids, his servants, and he goes back home. And this shows that God doesn't need perfect people to complete his plan. He uses unperfect, flawed, scheming people, and he can take our worst messes and bring blessings out of them. Now we go to Romans chapters 15 through 16, and basically God is saying he wants people from different backgrounds, different opinions to come together and glorify him. And Paul is saying, it's not just for the Jews, it's also for the Gentiles. Everything in the Old Testament is pointing that the Gentiles, which is non-Jews like us, is included in this too. He just wants everyone to come together, love each other, support missionaries, and spread the gospel. Now we go to Judges chapters 12 through 16, and this is at the end of Jephthah's story. I know I'm not saying that name right, but let me tell y'all his story really, really quick. So the Israelites was being oppressed by the Ammonites, and they've been in oppression for 18 years. So Jephthah, he rises up, and he is leading them, and he tells God, if you will let us beat the Ammonites, whoever runs out of my house first to greet me when I get back, I will sacrifice them up to you. So when they ended up winning the war, and when they get back home, his only child runs out to welcome him. And so what does he do? He has to sacrifice him up because that's what he promised God. But here's the thing. God never told him to sacrifice. God never told him to make that bargain. God didn't need his bargain. He didn't need his, if you'll do this, God, I'll do that. God didn't need that. They were going to win anyway. So, that was just a sad story that God never called him to do. But long story short, he was the ruler for 6 more years, and then he died. And you know how last week I told you the circle of the Israelites, how they go from being oppressed, and then somebody rises up, frees them, and then they sin again, and then it goes in a circle. So now they're back in that circle where they've been in oppression for 40 years, and they raise up a man, or God raises up a man named Samson to help deliver them. And Samson, he had just unnatural, strength from God, and his strength came from his hair. And he had a woman problem. He loved some women. So he ends up telling a prostitute Delilah. She ended up getting him to tell where his strength comes from. And he said, it's in my hair. So what does? She goes, tells the Philistines who were trying to, who was oppressing the Israelites. And so what do? They came in, they cut Samson's hair, they capture him, they take him and gorge his eyes out so he can't see. And they take him to like this big festival where all the Philistines were at. And basically to make fun of him and to be like, oh, look what we've got. Look what our gods has delivered for us. And so Samson's in the middle. There's like 3,000 Philistines. And he prays to God, God, give me strength one more time. So God did. And he pushes both the pillars and it collapses. It kills him, but it also kills 3,000 of the Philistines, which was included their like top military and thousands of their greatest warriors. Now we go to Psalms chapters 21 through 23, and David wrote these about himself, but they also point to Jesus. And it's basically saying that God answers prayers. He gives us more than we ask. He's always with us through our suffering. He is the best shepherd. And this is where the famous line comes from, the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. Now we go to Job chapters 15 through 16, and this is kicking off the second round of conversations between Job and his friends. And, they're still saying that this is all Job's fault. The reason why he's suffering is because he did something wrong. And the thing about this advice from Job's friends is I think they mean well. They're actually trying to defend God, but God doesn't need us to defend him. And by defending him, they're actually misrepresenting him because they're saying things that he never said. Sometimes God lets us suffer for reasons we cannot see. Sometimes it's to strengthen us. But whatever the reason is, God is with us. He promises to always be with us, and he's there listening to us when we pour our heart, pour out our tears. Now we go to Isaiah chapters 40 through 44. And these chapters, God is promising to raise up someone to help free Israel. And this is basically pointing to the Messiah, the Jesus coming. God says, I see you. I haven't forgot about you. I'm coming to rescue you, and the rescue will be much better than you imagined. Now we go to Matthew chapters 20 through 22, and Jesus is telling his disciples that he is going to go to Jerusalem and he's going to be betrayed. He's going to be beaten. He's going to be crucified. And after he talks about all this for the third time, James and John and their mom come up to him, and their mom is basically like, hey, can you please give my sons the 2 best seats in your kingdom? So basically, like if he's the president, and they'd be like the vice president and so on. Like they didn't understand like the crucifixion, all that part. What they're thinking is Jesus is going to come in and he's going to kick out all the Romans, and he's going to be like the high military setting up, and they want the 2 best seats in the cabinet. And Jesus is like, you don't know what you're asking. Can you drink from my cup? And basically he is saying, are you willing to suffer greatly for me, to share rejection, persecution, and even death? And they're like, yeah, they still don't understand. And then Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey. This is a week before he is crucified. And the people are waving palm branches going, Hosanna, Hosanna. And Hosanna basically means save us, save us. They thought, again, that Jesus was going to come in, kick the Romans out, and he was going to be like the highest of the military. They don't understand that what he's coming to do is to die for their sins. So technically he does save them, just not in the way that they thought. And then we go to the temple for Passover. So everybody's traveling days to come to the temple for Passover. And they normally buy animals at the temple. And because they're traveling for days, and they just buy pre-approved animals to sacrifice to God at the temple. And you also had to have like special temple money. So you had to exchange your money, the normal money, for temple money. So the money exchangers and the people selling the animals were basically ripping off God's people. They were charging like high interest rates. And so when Jesus came in and he saw this, that they're ripping off his people, they're using the temple as a place to make money instead of a place to worship, Jesus gets mad. He makes a whip. He goes in. He doesn't hit anybody, but he's like driving the animals out, flipping tables, and he's not having it. He told everybody to get out. He said, my house is a house of prayer, and you're making it to a den of robbers. And this whole week, the religious leaders keep trying to ask Jesus questions to try to like trick him. And Jesus turns every trap into a powerful lesson about the kingdom of God. All right, that's all I got. I'm running out of time. I hope to see all of y'all in week 9.